Yeah, so maybe before we start, could you maybe briefly just introduce yourself and tell me a bit how you got into teaching yoga?
Okay. So my name is Adrianne, and I've been teaching yoga for about 3.5 years. I'm fairly newly qualified, and I trained at the age of 47. So I'd say that I was more to the senior end of, the people that usually go into yoga teacher trainings. But it was something that I was looking to do for a few years after starting my own personal practice of yoga for a back injury. I wanted to share that. I wanted to give that back in some way, or at least try and encourage anybody else that was going through any other physical conditions or injuries, to give it a go, to try it. And also, I was looking for an out of my business at the time, of which I was, an event director. So for me, the mental and the physical combination of yoga really helped me. And if that can help somebody in a working environment, living this pressured daily life, with a lot of stress, maybe anxiety, and the physical as well. So yeah, I just wanted to reassure people that there was something that could help them.
I'm especially curious, like how does your practice look like today? Obviously a lot has changed in the last year, so to say. How does your teaching look like today?
So my teaching is obviously all online currently. I'm based in the UK. I'm based near Windsor in Berkshire, and Slough, and near Heathrow. So I'm right down in the southeast, and it's very, very busy around here. We have a lot of yoga teachers, in this central area, and obviously we're not far from London. So there's a big market down here for yoga and these well-being and wellness kind of practices. I have a small house. I live by myself, so I was fortunate where I could create a space that would be functional and it would work. So the space you see behind me is pretty much my yoga teaching area. And I have a screen which I bought online secondhand, just a lovely bamboo screen, which I pull across, and then I put some pretty plants in front of it to make it look like I'm in a kind of studio area. And it's very minimal. There's not a lot of fluff around in the background, like sofas, obviously, which there are now, or carpets, and things that are usually in your lounge. And basically where I'm sitting here now is the area where I start the class. I'm very much right in front of the screen when I'm teaching. And right in front of me there, I have a 49-inch screen where I can link up my laptop so I can see the students a lot bigger. Most of my students transitioned with me online. That was really lovely support to have as well. And they're still there. A year later, we're coming up to nearly a year of being only dedicated online. And the messages I receive from them that helps them feel better. And they've gone through huge amounts of trauma and sadness and loss throughout the year, as has everybody, in
Yeah.
one way or another. So I think the yoga for them has really helped.
Yeah, especially keeping them in that routine. I can imagine, having that at least one moment in the week for themselves, and seeing you, connecting with the teacher, and keeping on that practice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. It's great to hear that so many of your students continue participating in
Yeah.
your classes. And also, you mentioned a few things, but are there also maybe like certain hurdles you ran into, things that you ran into from the transition to, say, in-person classes to online classes, where you went, like, things you learned over time, things you could share maybe?
I learned a lot.
Yeah, because you make
I-
it sound fairly easy, but I can also understand that there's a lot of teachers being maybe hesitant or reluctant to actually making that transition from in person to online classes.
It is, and I think that it goes down to the type of person that you are, and whether you like teaching this way. I quite enjoy it. It was a challenge at first because I felt that seeing somebody in a little box in a 2D vision, and I'm trying to demonstrate postures. It's really hard, and I felt that I had to personally demonstrate a lot more, and your cues and how you speak had to change slightly. But just finding kind of the technology can be quite overwhelming, I think, for a yoga teacher that comes from a place of sincerity and giving back to their students, and then switching to all of this technology was probably quite overwhelming for a lot of teachers, and they didn't choose to go over. But if you do your research and ask the questions of peers and friends and other local yoga teachers, you get a lot of knowledge. And that's how I've built up. My lighting's still not great within the studio, but it works. It's bright. It's okay. The sound, however, I had this original Rode microphone, which was cabled. It was a wired cabled mic, and lots of people were using, headsets or lavalier mics and things like that. So I thought, that's the route I really need to go down. So, purchasing all of that stuff can be costly, but you don't necessarily need it. So, if you have a phone, an iPhone and a tripod, you can still do an online class really simply. I was using Excel spreadsheets in class, and I was, I had a list of people's names, and I would tick them off when they would attend, and they would have blocks in place. So I would keep track of the blocks on Excel spreadsheets. Well, when moving online, yeah, that doesn't quite work. So having a booking system in place and Momo Yoga saved a lot of time. It was really simple to pick up and to, function, and the user interface is very simple, very easy to understand. And for that fact, it controls my students. They have an app where they can book in, or I book them in manually. They can pay, they can cancel, they can add themselves to class. I can set up the schedule, and it's just, and then they get a reminder by automatic emails, and then they get sent the Zoom link. So all of that kind of admin, which you don't really want to do as a yoga teacher, let's be honest. We want to teach. We want to get the people in the class, and we want to teach. And so, yeah, having Momo Yoga as my booking system has really, streamlined my business almost. And then having that link where I can just send it out to people is just so easy. It was just smooth transition for me, just, picking up little bits along the way. And now I feel I have a good setup, and it works.
Great. That's great to hear. I can imagine you long to go back into in-person classes, of course, but it sounds to me that you really got the hang of teaching online. Are there also maybe things that you see as an advantage of online classes in comparison to in-person classes?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's obviously the reduction of cost and outlay when you're hiring spaces. That's the first and initial thing that I noticed was, obviously I wasn't spending out as much, but you do have your costs, linked to that. You have obviously your booking system and your platform streaming, and any other costs that you might need to invest to get your microphone or lighting set up, and things that you might need to hide your space. But for me, I didn't have to go anywhere, and most of my halls were very, very close anyway, so I didn't have to travel. But I think from the student perspective, what I've noticed is that people like doing it from home, and some miss that energy within the class. I mean, I miss teaching a group of people in front of me and hearing, you know, the group work together almost as breathe as one. Yeah. And you don't get that with teaching online, because you tend to put them on mute. So you don't have this instant interaction. And I mean, my students know that if at any point they want to ask a question, we are a very, very familiar group, and we're very welcoming, and we're non-judgmental to each other. We're very caring. And so, you know, they can always come off mute and ask a question or write in the chat or something like that, but they tend not to, and they leave it until the end of class. So for them, they have that option to ask that question that they might ask in a live environment. Also, I think that, you know, they don't feel judged or, you know, by other people within a studio environment as well. I think a lot comes out of ego, and, you know, potentially this, you know, I should be just like her, or I should look just like him, that kind of attitude when we're in poses. But whereas I've really tried to kind of impress that it's how you feel within the posture and not really how it looks. So make it accessible for yourself. And that's hard to do when they're in their own space.
Yeah.
Because you can't see them from the back or from the sides. You just get this 2D vision. But I've absolutely seen improvements from, you know, day one to now. And I know that they like being in their space sometimes, and it also gets them out of their day. And if they're in a busy household with lots of children, certainly in lockdown when the schools are closed, you know, they
There's
need
some
that.
challenges.
Yeah, 75 minutes of their day just to shut away from the rest of the world and be with themselves. So yeah, I think there are many benefits. Also, the reach globally. You know, you can reach people a lot further, not just in your local area. So I've taught friends in the US. They've attended classes on occasion, not many.
No, but
because,
still,
yeah.
Yeah, you might have these challenges with time difference in there or anything, but you're very right. You can at least teach overseas and have other people coming into classes. But what you just mentioned, you know, obviously, I think let's say the disadvantages or maybe put the other way around, like the benefits of the in-person classes, they do speak for themselves. You know, it's from my experience also, it's a lot more than just the yoga class itself. You know, it's also the routine of coming to class, of connecting with your teacher, maybe connecting with the other students, maybe hanging in there a little bit after, etc. Yeah, those are things that are maybe more difficult to facilitate online than they were in person. How is it about? I'm curious. Like, usually, like maybe in preparation to your class, how is that in online classes compared to offline classes? Like, how many time did it need you to prepare, to get set up, to maybe log off afterwards? Can you maybe tell me a little bit about that routine? Like, how does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I teach 7 classes a week, and 5 of those are to my own students, and 2 of those are to gyms. And what I'll do is I'll set a sequence. Usually on a Sunday, I'll develop a sequence for that week, and that sequence will start on a Monday, and it will finish on a Sunday, and it will progress, and it will transform, and it will change. So they all know that there's a theme running through the entire week. And the theme tends to kind of bring elements from the week before and elements from the week after. So it kind of, you know, a 3-week span will cover, you know, the whole week. And so once I've prepared that, I tend to get a lot better at it throughout the week as well. And I record some of the classes, and I send them the Zoom links at the end of the week as well. So if they weren't able to attend, or if they wanted to do it again. And then in the setup itself, I mean, it takes me 5 minutes to set up my space. And everything's kind of ready. It's just plugging in a few cables, making sure my mic's charged, making sure my laptop's, connected to my TV, and then just setting up this space behind me. I've got a number of plants, so I put those in front of the screen, and then my mat. And also, because I've got the distance, this is one thing that has been an issue with a lot of people, is having that distance to be able to get full height for poses and things like that. But I don't have that problem. This is my longest room in my house, so this was the real only option to teach from. So once that's set up, I've got the laptop, I've got the TV, I've got my mic, I've got my lights, I've got my studio space, and it's very, very simple. It's
Great.
And then when I log in 5 minutes before class, they've already received a link with the meeting ID, and my meeting ID stays the same for each class of each week.
Yeah,
So
that's convenient.
so each class has its same meeting ID, and they will have received that by email through Momo Yoga 30 minutes before class. I log in about 5 minutes. I play a little bit of music through sharing, just trying to add little bits in to enhance. And it's all about enhancement, I think. And then they come on, they join. I have a waiting room set up, so I let them in, and we all talk for a couple of minutes whilst everyone's joining class. And I think for them that's important as well, because that's what we would have done when we were in
Exactly.
real life.
Yeah.
I don't just keep them on mute when they arrive and start the class. I like them to connect with one another, just in case they haven't spoken to anybody during that day.
Yeah, I think that's what I just mentioned. You're also simulating that coming to class and catching up with the teacher, catching up with each other. I think you're doing great in there. And the things you mentioned, those must be those learnings, like how you said, like my mic being charged, getting to know how to set it with that distance. It might be something that you've evolved in over time. I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
And now, how is it today? Like, if you start teaching tomorrow, are you still like excited for it, or is it just becoming a routine, or?
So it's a bit like this. But I would say that it's a bit like this only because of everything that's probably going on around us. And, it's hard sometimes for a yoga teacher to take time off. We feel guilty. I feel guilty when I take a week off, in the summer or at Easter or at Christmas, because I feel that they want to do their yoga. So I make sure that they've got, YouTube videos to watch or Zoom recordings. But it's important, obviously, for yoga teachers to take that time off. We need a break too.
100%, yeah.
Absolutely. So, for me, I've definitely had dips where I'm like, a lack of energy, or it's not really boredom or commitment to my job, as it were, as a yoga teacher. It's more of the same routine and there's no change. And I think when you get back into real life, that's a change. You're leaving your house.
Yeah.
I mean, bearing in
instance,
mind,
really.
yeah, this is my entire space. I watch TV, I eat my dinner, I work, I teach, I practice, I relax. I'm in this space constantly. If you were online all day, looking at a screen, 8 hours a day, I think that's draining.
Yeah.
So I don't teach that many classes to be kind of zoomed out, as it were.
Yeah. I can imagine that there's a challenge also in logging off, after a session, exactly like what you mentioned. You basically live, teach, and relax in the same room, in the same environment. And I think that counts for many of us. And there's a true challenge in logging off from, let's say, that work mode into relaxing and to recharging yourself. Yeah.
I'd say that online yoga is nothing new. You know, it's only new at the moment because a lot more people have been exposed to it, but it was nothing new. You know, YouTube videos have been around for a while, and there's been a lot of yoga teachers that have obviously been doing YouTube live or pre-recorded for a very, very long time. You know, I remember even in, well, I was, when I started, so let's see, so 2015, 2014, you know, that's when I started doing online yoga.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
nothing new.
No.
The newness of it is that more people have been exposed to online yoga, and for necessary reasons, because they can't get to a public class. But I think in time, when we're in a place to reopen studios and gyms, and we get back to, you know, to real life yoga, I don't think this is going away. It will support and it will supplement, and it could run side by side. I mean, I will be continuing to teach online, and I will go back to teaching, you know, in person. But I don't think online is going away anytime soon. I just think we'll create hybrid. So basically where you've got, you know, your studio people in person, and you might have your phone or your laptop recording for your online students who are still
At
at
the
home.
same time.
Yeah, so I think that is potential. Also, I think there's a, you know, there's vast amounts of recorded material out there. I mean, if you want to take up yoga, there's no shortage.
No.
And same with any practices, really, Pilates, dance, Zumba. It's all there. It's all there.
It's on demand by now. Yeah, okay, so super interesting. I think especially what you mentioned with those, let us name it hybrid classes. I think that's something that that will be bigger and bigger towards the future, and maybe that's one of the good things that came out of the whole situation we are into today. You know, that we also, as a yoga community and as teachers, warped into, let's say, this digital space, and that we got also different ways to teach our classes. And maybe once we are as fortunate as to go back to the studios, we can do these hybrid classes and have the advantages of both connecting with your local community, but still having that broader reach to students worldwide, basically. Maybe a good one coming to a close. Maybe a good one is there anything you maybe like to share with the yoga community on this, like something else, anything you'd say like, this is something I want to be heard?
Well, what I would say is don't be scared. You know, just don't be scared about moving your business online. I have to say, I was very, I didn't want to be kind of, it's not that presenting, it's that whole marketing and everything that goes behind being online. The digitalization of our technology is fascinating and in such advancement that we should really grasp it. We should take this opportunity to use what is out there for us. And if that helps us and it helps our students and it helps our business, then I think don't be scared, just go for it. As yoga teachers, we could work anywhere in the world. And if you're teaching online, I could take my laptop down to the beach and I could teach a class from the beach.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
You know, and so I think that there is definite scope and huge possibilities and opportunities for reaching more people and giving and delivering what you have a passion for.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing this. It's amazing. Really good.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me and giving me the opportunity.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Super nice. Thank you for the invitation.
I will.
Really appreciate.
Take care. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.